Hi, I'm Liselle and welcome back to my channel where I talk about all things writing, traditional publishing, and a little bit of reading. And this is the mid-year writing projects update video. Essentially in the beginning of the year, I do a video where I talk about everything that I'm going to be working on this year in 2025 and kind of what's on my plate, what I've planned, what I'm continuing working on, new things I'm starting, plans, that sort of thing. And I do that in the beginning of the year, and then this is just a good halfway point for me to catch you up on everything and to just say how those projects have been going. Continue talking about what I'm working on, future plans, and do kind of like a bit of a reflection about my kind of writing project / career at this midpoint in the year, because sometimes things can change a lot. And so this is great for if you're not really like kind of keeping up with my regular writing vlogs and you kind of want to hear a little bit more of a summary, or you are keeping up with my writing vlogs but you'd like to see a kind of like condensed refresher of everything and kind of hear some of my thoughts as they pertain to the projects and career and that sort of thing. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I do have timestamps down below if you, for whatever reason, want to jump around to different parts, but that's about it. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with ongoing projects, but first I'm going to do a little bit of an intro to this book, A Mastery of Monsters, because there's going to be a lot of talk about this series essentially. So A Mastery of Monsters is my new young adult dark academia fantasy. It's coming out July 29th of this year, and we follow a girl whose life is basically on a bit of a downward spiral on purpose. She's having a tough time and she's trying to just tank everything, and then her brother goes missing and he leaves a note saying, you know, everything's like okay, but she is not buying it. She knows that he wouldn't leave her, especially so soon after their own mother has gone missing and been missing for quite a bit of time, and she ends up sort of following the breadcrumbs to an on-campus secret society that is full of monsters, and in fact ends up making a pact with a boy who can transform into a literal flesh-eating monster to help him in a competition in exchange for him helping her find clues about her brother, because she kind of needs to get into that society to do that. And along the way, maybe some feelings are caught. It's set at my alma mater, Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario. It's got a lot of deadly competitions. It's got some slow burn romance. It's got some family drama. It's got a lot of secret society politics and intrigue, that sort of thing. And so that's A Mastery of Monsters. So I wanted to talk about that up front because I'm going to talk about the other two books, because this is the first in a trilogy. So there's going to be 3 books in all. And so I feel like I often talk about all these things in tandem. So I figured I may as well intro A Mastery of Monsters before I get into that. But now that I've told you about A Mastery of Monsters, so ongoing projects, I've been working on the second Mastery book. And so at this point, I'm in the line edit process, but can't tell you much about the book again because the first book isn't even out, but it is, you know, it's following along from the events of the first book. It also includes a new POV from a character that appeared in the first book but didn't have her own point of view, so that's been exciting to add that in. You know, more deadly competitions, more romance, more dark academia hijinks and whatnot. And so that's the second book. And yeah, at this point in the process, I am doing line level edits. So because my editor was really, really happy with my first draft of the book, which was not actually my first draft, it was my second draft, because I always edit my drafts before I send them to my editor. She was really happy with that. So we only ended up doing 1 round of developmental edits. And so we've gone into line edits. Usually we do 2 rounds of developmental and then we do line edits. Mind you, these line edits are a little bit, it's like a half of a developmental plus a line edit. And so I've been working on that. And I've really had to devote a lot of time to it because it is a very large book. A Mastery of Monsters is like 157,000 words. And this second book is around 173. It'll probably be 175 by the time I'm done with this draft. And I am thinking about trying to cut it down myself. My editor has not told me to cut it down, but I'm thinking about cutting it down myself. So I might be attempting to do that. But overall, I'm really, really happy with this book. I think it is so good. I think it does those things that I want a sequel to do, is that I want it to escalate onto the first book. I want it to build upon the world that you already know. I want it to set up some things for the first book, but I don't want it to feel like a setup book. And I think that's the danger in writing a trilogy, is that it can be really easy to have a second book feel like a filler. And that is not at all what I'm trying to do with each of these books. They all have their own distinct arc within that book, and part of that is the way that I structured these, which was sort of in the vein of like a shonen anime, like an action adventure anime, in which you have like different arcs on top of the kind of like overarching theme or whatever is going into the book. And so I've really tried to make it that way so that each book has a feeling of having its own independent story, so that there's some sort of like payoff or full circle. And I feel like this is really delivering. I feel like so many things are pumped up. I feel like the competitions are pumped up, the secret societies are pumped up, the romance is pumped up. Like I just feel like it's so good. And even though it is a chunky book, something I've worked on very purposely with these books is making them faster paced so that you don't feel the length. And I do feel like this book continues to do that and build on that. I feel like it's got that fast pace sort of feeling. So I'm really happy with everything I've managed to do thus far with this book. And so I'm just at the point where I'm really taking my time with these line edits to make sure that I'm really like, you know, dotting my I's, crossing my T's, getting out all of the little fine details. And I feel like it's coming together really well. I've also seen the final cover art. It's so good. It's so just perfect. It just, oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I love everything about it. I think it's so cool. I think it's gonna look amazing next to the Mastery cover. I love the color scheme and the illustration. It's just, oh, it's so good. It's so good. I can't wait until I'm gonna be able to share that cover because it is just fantastic. And yeah, I'm just like, I'm so looking forward to getting the first book, into people's hands and computers and whatnot. But I feel like this second book is gonna be really good. I always strive to make the second book feel better than the first, and I do feel like this is doing that. Now we're going to talk about new in 2025 projects. So these are projects that I started this year or am going to start this year, which is going to be the case in me talking about this book first, which is the third Mastery book, the third book in the Mastery of Monsters series. I do have titles for all of these, but again, I'm not saying them up front. I want it to be a surprise. So I'm keeping them close to my chest. Yeah, so that third Mastery book, I haven't started yet. I am planning to start it a little bit down. I've had to shift around my schedule a little bit because I realized that working on 2 projects at once in a month is not my thing. And so it's better for me to just shift my schedule so I can focus on one project in 1 month instead of trying to juggle. And this is a lesson that I've taught myself and I've learned before in the past, and yet I persist because I feel like I have to learn a lesson about writing or publishing like 2 or 3 times before it actually sticks. And so that's the case with this. So the third Mastery book, so third and final, I have done some work on this because I needed to understand what I was going to put in the third book in order to know what I need to set up in the second book. And so I've already done some thinking about it in that way. And so I have some like overarching like plot points and some like detailed things that I have put together, but I haven't actually like put together anything or like done the plot yet. And so that's something that I do need to start and work on. My goal for this year, because I assume, but I'm not sure, that my deadline for the first draft of this book will be in February of 2026. And because I don't like to hand in first drafts to my editor, I need time to both write a first draft, read through it, plan edits, and then also edit so I can send off a second draft. And so my current plans for that is to try and get the first draft this year, and also like plan out for the edits that I'm going to do this year. And so then right in January after the holidays, I can kind of like hit the ground running and just do those edits and get that done in that month for that deadline. Unless of course I get an extended deadline or I don't know, the deadline is not what I think, but just going on my past deadlines, I think that's how it's going to be. So yeah, I still have to plot everything. I have to write it and then I have to do all the edits. So it's pretty much like, it feels like starting from scratch, even though it's not technically starting from scratch. But I just wanted to talk about that third mastery book first because I was already talking about mastery stuff. So, and then the other new project in 2025 is what I'm calling #slugbook. This is an adult speculative horror. It is about an alternate version of Toronto in which slugs have become an important commodity. And yes, I'm talking about the the animal of slugs. Yeah, actually not an insect, an animal. So talking about those, yes, they have become an important commodity, and we are following a woman whose job is essentially to get rid of them. And she ends up being forced to team up with a influencer, YouTuber, content creator, who is sort of the only survivor of a serial killer. And so they basically, through that, the woman who is the main character also kind of becomes a target, and they end up kind of working together to try and track down this serial killer. So yeah, that's essentially what it is. This is just like a work in progress. This isn't contracted or sold or anything like that. It's something that I've just been working on, putting together. I mean, I would like for it to be contracted or sold in the future. But yeah, that's something I've been working on. And so far I have a first draft, which is great. And my next step is to work on planning, to do a self-edit of the whole manuscript and then actually executing that. I had thought that maybe I could do that at the same time as line edits, and I realized that was not possible for me. And so I've set it aside to have its own kind of like dedicated time period of about 3 to 4 weeks. We'll see what I can swing, so that I can just focus on getting a nice polished version of it that I can then kind of share with my agent and share with beta readers, so that I can get that feedback and kind of make it better, polish it up, and kind of see where that goes from there. And I'm really enjoying my time with the slug book. I think it is such a unique, interesting concept, that I do feel really sort of like precious about it. I feel like, oh my gosh, this is like such a good idea. Like, I'm so proud of putting this idea together. And there are so many bits and pieces in the story that I do really love, because at the heart of it, it's really about consumption and like people's perceptions of different forms of consumption, judgment of consumption. It's also been a great sort of medium for me to sort of dig into topics about eating disorders in a way that I haven't been able to necessarily in my young adult work. I have a sort of like different tone if I talk about disordered eating in young adult than I wanted to have in adult. And so it's interesting to get to explore the same topic from a bit of a different angle. And so that's been really fun. I do feel like I'm really stretching my craft muscles working on it. And so, yeah, I'm really enjoying my time working on it. It's in a little bit of a rough shape. It does need some more time and, you know, tender loving affection to kind of get it where I feel like it should be. But I am continuing to work on it. And as I said, in the past, I did apply for a grant to work on this project. Just the way that the granting happens, like, because of the time period and like how long it takes you to hear back, most of the time you are like already working, like you're working on the project as if you got a grant, but you don't know if you will. So that's still kind of up in the air. When I hear back from that, I will update and let you know kind of whether it is yay or nay. I will let you know about that. But that's pretty much the state that that project is in. I'm really looking forward to continuing on with it and like polishing it and making it into something that I feel confident sending off to people like my agent and beta readers. And then I'm really interested to see what feedback comes in, because it's such an odd concept and an odd book. And I feel like it's something where you can get really excited about the concept, but then you can get disappointed by the execution. And that's what I don't want to happen. And so it'll be interesting to get feedback and kind of hear what people think about this weird little book that I have put together. This is the on submission section. So if you are not familiar within traditional publishing, when you have a project and you want it to be purchased by publishers, your literary agent will send it out to different editors at different publishing houses and imprints. And this is called being on submission because you are on submission to those publishers with the hopes that they will put in an offer and purchase your book. And so that is what submission is, and I have 2 projects on submission at this point in the year, and so I figured I'd do this separate little section in the update just so I can kind of engage you on those, because they aren't things that I'm necessarily working on, but they do have a sort of activeness, so I figured it would be good to talk about them. Though I will say I will be pulling back a little bit in terms of transparency. I think this has been a learning process for me. And in the past, it used to be like, I'm not going to talk about submission at all until the process is over. And then as time has gone on, I've become a sort of, more seasoned author, if you will. I've been like, well, I'd like to share some things and be a little bit transparent about some things. But I have discovered in some ways that, I need to toe that line a little bit better, because I think for a lot of my career, I've really just like assumed that people in editorial spaces, etc., or like within the business of publishing don't watch anything I have going on my channel, and that is not necessarily correct. And so you can understand how some things can maybe it's not like I'm like talking bad about editors or anything like that. I would never do that on my channel. But for example, if I have a project and I don't think things are going well, and I'm talking about, man, I think things are going really poorly, and an editor decides to watch that, it creates an impression about the project, and it sort of opens a window that might not have been open otherwise in a way that could potentially be detrimental to me, if that makes sense. Like if you were interested in reading a book and then the author's like, man, I don't know, I feel like nobody's interested in reading this book, that will affect your interest in reading the book, if that makes sense. And so I feel like there is a little bit more of a line to be balanced on for me, and I just need to figure out that balance of like wanting to share things and like bring you all into the process, but also not wanting to necessarily make the process detrimental to myself. So yeah, a bit of a balance to be struck there, but yeah, I figured it'd be good to just like talk about what I have on submission and that sort of thing. So talking first, the first project is, I'm calling it #The Retreat. This has had many hashtags and many titles as I've worked on it, but it is now solidly hashtag The Retreat is what I'm codenaming it, because I cannot be switching these code names so often. But this is an adult speculative horror thriller sort of situation. I always like balance. I'm like thriller and then I like horror and then, anyway. But that is what it is, and it is basically centering around a retreat that uses a specialized piece of technology to help you fall in love for the first time again. And we are following our main character, Harper, as she embarks on this journey, and then shit goes down, essentially. So that's The Retreat. And that pitch has changed because in this process, I've also revised the book. I did a revision process with it. And so during that process, some things have shifted, and so I've shifted the pitch as well. And so if you know the past pitch and you're like, wait, wasn't there this aspect before? Things have shifted and changed. So you should just go based on my most recent pitch. But that's the situation. And yeah, this is a book I've worked really, really hard on. I've worked really, really hard on this book. And it has really been 100% a labor of love. There have been ups, there have been downs, there have been more downs, there have been ups. And it has been kind of a bit of a roller coaster ride. But I think, at the heart of this, and what I've been really proud of with this project, is a really in-depth discussion about relationships and about what success looks like and feels like, and the sort of unique pressure of that situation, or that unique perspective from a sort of Black millennial woman, and what that kind of means and how that, incorporates into your life. And I've been really pleased with how that's come across. And so, yeah, that is The Retreat. And so that is an adult project that I have on submission. And then the next project, this is what I'm calling the Survivors Trilogy. So this is a young adult standalone horror set in Toronto over 24 hours. And I've been sort of pitching this as a 3-book series with like either interconnected standalones or standalones that can 100% stand by themselves, just be standalones, but with that continuing theme of being young adult horror, and having that theme of sort of survivors and being set in Toronto over 24 hours. And so that's kind of like the interconnected theming. And so the first book is what's really being pitched, the first book in this series, which is following a group of girls, and they have recently had a bit of a friendship breakup with one of the girls that kind of pushed her out of their group. And then they are graduating from high school, and their old babysitter, who happens to be the sister of the girl they pushed out, invites them on this fancy, all expenses paid night out in Toronto. And because there is something that they want from their ex-friend, they agree to go on this trip. And then things start to get a little spooky, a little creepy, a little macabre, and they kind of have to deal with all of that from there. It's very much about, female friendships and the changing nature of friendships and transitions between, high school and university, or high school and like having to figure out what you are going to be doing as a sort of like presumed adult, and that sort of process, and the changing nature of friendships is basically what that's about. And this is the first project that we've sent out on proposal, so it is not like a fully completed manuscript the way I've done in the past, because I have a history in young adult horror, and so it is a proposal. So it's like the first 6 chapters. It's got a pitch letter for all 3 of the books. It's got a second little bit talking about how they're can be interconnected or not. And then it's got a synopsis for that first book as well. And so that's what we have sent out to editors. We are still, you know, pretty early days. So that's kind of all I'm going to say about it. We're just, you know, we're still very early on in this process. And yeah, so that's, you know, what I have put out there, and it is on wide submission. So it's being sent to my publisher that I've published YA with this whole time, but it's also being sent to other publishers. And yeah, so that is the Survivors trilogy, or standalones, however they want to be put together. So that's just everything that I have on submission, just so you can kind of understand what's out there. Now for the reflection portion, I feel like this year, 2025, has definitely been a lesson in scheduling and shifting things around and flexibility. It really is always kind of that way when I am working with multiple projects. And I think especially in the case of like working on mastery, because these are not only large books, but this is like the most ambitious world building that I have ever done with a book. It's my first trilogy. There's just a lot that is going into this project. And I frequently end up in the situation where I'm like, oh, I need more time. Oh, I need more time. Oh, I need more time. And because it's what's contracted, it takes priority. And so I feel like I've constantly been shifting around my schedule to make room for it and to move things around. And I also feel like this has been a year where I've like needed more breaks than usual, where I feel like there's been like multiple times this year where I've been like, I just need to take a week off. And I just take a week off because I'd just be so tired. And so it has definitely been like very much a balancing act with my writing projects and like being able to shift things around and move things. And I think the thing about me is it's always kind of like best laid plans. Like I plan out very strictly and I'm very regimented with the sort of like plans that I put together for my books and my writing. But I've also in the few years like learned to be more flexible with myself because I need to. And so it has been a thing of like just like moving plans around a lot, which I think has always been to my benefit, to just give myself more time to do things. And I think I've also like talked through myself as well in, you know, thinking about my third book and like what I want to get done. And I have also had to have, you know, conversations with myself where I'm like, if you don't have enough time and you can only get the first draft in time for the first draft deadline, then that is what it's going to have to be. And I've been very like, you know, straightforward with myself about doing that, because these are the things that I need to do and I need to get in place, especially when I'm having projects on submission, because you know, fingers crossed, if one or both of those projects sell, then now I have something else contracted that I have to incorporate in the schedule. And so it can't be rigid. I need to be able to flex and move it around. So, I feel like I've done good with that this year, and I'm really happy with all of my projects. Like even when I'm struggling, like having a difficult time working on a project, I still really believe in it. Like I believe in the mastery books so much. I think they're such a fantastic set of books. And I think the world of them. I think the world of those books. And the Slug book I just think has such amazing potential and such good nuggets in it. Like I'm really dedicated to working on these books and making these books the best they can possibly be, which is really good. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. But I also think this year has like felt very crossroads type thing, and I think that's just the nature of when I have a project on submission and I don't know how things are going to go, because it's on submission and you don't know. I'm always like in a crossroads of like, well, if this happens then this can happen, or if this happens then this can happen, or this happens, and I don't really know. And so I feel like that always makes me feel a little bit like I'm in limbo or in flux in a way that I don't really enjoy, but that's just the nature of the business. But yeah, but otherwise I feel like I'm feeling really solid. I feel like I'm in like a really good space right now, with all my projects and everything that I'm working on. And I feel like I have a legitimate, like a manageable workload, especially now that I've made those shifts with the scheduling. So yeah, I feel like that's how things are going. I felt a little bit bad about this update because I was like, oh my gosh, am not really working on anything new. I feel like sometimes I do this like midpoint check-in and I've like switched around all these different projects and I've like added a bunch of different things. And it's like really exciting that I like have all this stuff shifted around. And like in this case, it's like same stuff, working on the same stuff that I was working on. But I feel like that's also just like the nature of like a trilogy. It's a longer project, and so it's stretched over more time, and me really focusing in on this sort of slug book project. But yeah, that's really it for projects that I'm working on right now. And yeah, if you are interested in checking out what I was talking about at the beginning of the year, I'll have that video linked down below. Or if you want to keep up with my vlogs, my writing vlogs, I have those linked down below. Yeah, otherwise, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And thank you so much for watching. Bye!